Hey, okay people, I'm Sean Stewart and we're back in the Organized Chaos Carpentry Shop. Today, we're getting into how to cut a common rafter. On this channel, we're about getting down to the basics in the trades. Stuff tradespeople wish they knew before they got started and stuff to help you around your home. We are going to be using this tool for the majority of this video, which is a framing square. This way that we're teaching how to cut a common rafter is called a step method. It is the easiest method. It's not necessarily used all the time on the job site, but it's going to get you started. I'm at this old doghouse here that we pulled out. It's missing this common rafter. A common rafter is each of these, which are the most common type of rafter you're going to see on a house, on a shed, on a doghouse. It is the one that goes straight up to a ridge board. And we are going to be figuring out the sizes and how to cut this. The first thing we need to know is the span from outside of the wall to outside of the wall. In our case, it is 32 inches. After we found that out, we have to divide it in half. Because we're doing a gable roof, we have a slope up and down, and that means we have to have half of that. And so half would be 16. We also have to subtract half of our ridge board. Our ridge board in this case is a 2x4, and therefore half of it is 3/4 of an inch. 16 minus 3/4 is 15 1/4. So we have a span of 15 1/4. We also need to know our slope. Your slope, you might be given to you by your blueprint, or you might be choosing it for yourself. In our case, we have to match what is already here. We've already decided this was a 512 slope. 512 means for every 12 inches across, it is 5 inches up. So we have to figure out 15 1/4 how far up we need to go. But we'll get to that when we get to the bench. The next thing we need to know is our overhang. Our overhang here is 6 inches. You have to consider the fact that you'll have a fascia board on here as well, and so you have to add the width of your fascia board to your or subtract the width of your fascia board to get what you want for your overhang for your common rafter. In summary, we need to know our span less our divided in half less our ridge board. We also need to know our slope, which in our case is 512. We need to know our overhang of 6 inches, and we need to know that we're sitting it on a 2x4. Our main tool today is our framing square. It is a tool that we're going to be using exclusively to be marking out our rafter. I have started by taking some painter's tape and marking out the 5 and the 12 inch on this framing square. That is our slope, 5 and 12. What you want to be careful of, I put an arrow to be sure of it, is you have to be making sure that you're using the top on both or the bottom on both. If you go to 5 inches on the bottom and then 12 inches on the top, you're going to have a different slope than if you put 5 inches and 12 inches from the top. So we're going to start by marking out the tail of our board. This down here is going to be the bottom of our rafter, and that will be the top. And what I'm going to do is start off by marking out the very bottom with my 5 and my 12. And there's my bottom at the right slope. The next thing, while keeping that there, our overhang was 6 inches, if you remember. And so I'm going to take it over 6 inches and make a mark. Then I'm just going to slide this along, making sure I'm still at the 5 and the 12, and mark that down. The next thing we want to do is we need to go over a run of 15 1/2 inches. Keeping the same slope, we're going to make a mark at 12 inches. And then we're going to slide it over. And so we're at the 12-inch mark, making sure we're right on both sides. And then 12 plus 3 1/4 inches gets us up to the 15 1/4 that we needed for our run. So I'm gonna mark it at 3 1/4, moving this over to our 3 1/4 mark, and scribing a line. So now we're gonna be cutting that line, and we're gonna be cutting that line, and we have our length of our rafter. This method that we just used of stepping it, so we did 12 inches plus the 3 1/4, that can be run right along a whole board. So you could take that, add 12 more inches, 12 more inches, 12 more inches, and you could get yourself up to, let's say you had an 8-foot run. You just keep adding 12 inches 8 times and you're at an 8-foot run. And so you can do that for any length of board and it'll work. Next thing we want to do is cut the bird's mouth. The bird's mouth is the piece that is cut out that sits on the wall. So we're going to bring our 5 and our 12 back down to our very first line, where we marked our 6 inches. Now we are sitting on a 2x4 wall, which a 2x4 is 3.5 inches wide. So 6 inches plus 3.5 inches is 9.5 inches. So we're going to make a mark right there, and then we're going to bring our slider or square down, mark it down, and then what we're going to want to do is slide our square back the other way until we get, so the bottom here is touching that line that we just drew, and draw it across. And now we have a 3.5 inch piece that we're going to cut out, and your wall is going to sit right there. And so we have to cut this out, and this out. All right, so we're now into cutting the bird's mouth, which I'll show you in a second. If you are new to this, you may want to clamp your board down. The hand cutting will shake your board around a lot, and you're just working a little closer to your blade. And so we are cutting out this bird's mouth right here. We need to get rid of that piece, but we don't want to cut too far into the other pieces. We can cut a little bit, and that's not a problem, but you don't want to cut too far. And so, using the circular saw, we overcut just a hair, making it easier on ourselves. Once you're to that point, you can then take your handsaw and cut off the rest. We have ourselves a rafter. Okay, so we slapped our common rafter in place. If you have yourself a perfect cut, it'll be tight along your bird's mouth all the way. It will be tight along your ridge board. It'll be your perfect overhang out the ways, and it'll fit just nice. Now, I want to allow you to give yourself a little slack. If there is a small amount of gap on the end of the bird's mouth, or there's a little bit of pitch change in your ridge board, it's okay. A little bit you'll be able to cover that up with your plywood. Nobody will ever know the difference. But if it is too loose, you're gonna wanna try again, because it is a structural component. Congratulations, you now know how to cut a rafter. One little investment you could make if you're doing more than, let's say, a shed worth of roof is these little stop blocks. These things screw on and tighten up, and they keep your work a little bit more consistent, but your tape on your square works almost as good. If you're interested in investing in one of these or any of the tools we use, we'll have them linked in the description below. If you're stopping by for the first time or you haven't already and are interested, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you back in the shop soon.